The Angels have an offense problem, and today we're going to begin a multi-part, multi-episode look at what's gone wrong with the Halos. And we're going to start with the hitting and who has contributed up and down the lineup when the Angels were good. Plus, we're going to get you ready for the Astros series that begins at home today, and we're going to get to a voicemail that asks a very important question. You're locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. If you're listening on the audio side, whether that's Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we appreciate your review and rating. We love to hear your feedback, and we take that personally. We take it seriously. We incorporate it into the show, so we love hearing from you. If you're watching on the video side on YouTube, hello. Thank you for joining us there, and please make sure you subscribe to Locked On Angels, and be sure to click the bell to be notified every time a new episode drops. And thank you for joining us for this edition of Locked On Angels. You are locked on with John. I'm John Frisch, one half of the Super Halo Bros and one half of Locked On Angels. My brother Mike and I usually host this show together, but he's in Hawaii, far and away from this team right now. He's taking a nice vacation. So I am here to get you through the week and keep you up to date with everything going on with our Halos. And I promised that we were going to take a look at what's gone wrong with the Halos. They had a lot of early success this season, and for the first month and a half, they were a fun team to watch. And for the last month and a half, they have not been very fun at all. And so a lot of us have been asking the question, what changed? What in the world happened to this team? 1 minute it's the pitching, the next it's the hitting. And right now the Angels have an offensive problem. And you know what? I'm offended because it is offensive. Sorry for the bad joke there. But listen, I wanted to take a look at where the early success came from for this team. Now, when you look at the lineups from the last month and a half and to the month and a half before that, when the Angels were good, there's something I noticed. There was a trend that I noticed, and I want to share it with you right now. Obviously, you have early games like our first win against Houston. That was a very tightly pitched game between a returning Noah Syndergaard and a returning Justin Verlander. It was a pitcher's duel, and Mike Trout and Jared Walsh both got solo shots off of Justin Verlander in that game. It was a 2-0 game. It ended up being a really close game against the Astros. Our first win of the season was against them. It was the third game of the season for us. And so obviously you have your contributors like Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, Jared Walsh. Those guys are going to be your heavy hitters. But I wanted to take a moment to examine where the help has come from in other places in this lineup. And I actually did a lot of research for this one, and I'm excited to share it with you. So let's go back to that early Marlins series. Remember, we played the Marlins in early April. In fact, all the way back on April 11th, there's an interesting trend I want to show you, and it begins with this game. The Marlins and the Angels were at Angel Stadium, and they won 6-4 in that game. The Angels won that one. But let me tell you where all the RBIs came from in that game. Brandon Marsh, who was batting fifth that day, hit a home run. And you know who else hit a home run? A man by the name of Joe Adell, who was batting seventh that day. Now, let me tell you who was on base for Brandon Marsh. Well, Shohei Ohtani was on base after he got a single, and then Max Stassi got a walk. Brandon Marsh came up later, hit a home run, a 3-run home run. You know who else hit that home run was Joe Adell. He hit a solo shot. And then later on, get this, Marsh doubles with, again, Max Stassi on base after a walk. So Marsh had a runner on base. He doubles, brings home Stassi. Then, right after that, Joe Adell, he doubles and hits in Marsh. So Marsh scores on that one. So let me break this down for you. All 6 runs that day came from a guy who's currently not on the team in Joe Adell, and a guy who's been struggling at the bottom of the order as of late, which is Brandon Marsh. We've seen him in the 7th spot. We've seen him in the 9th spot recently. 2 guys who were significant factors to the Angels' early success. One's not there anymore. I wish he was. Mike and I have been calling for him to be called up in Joe Adell and Brandon Marsh, who obviously it goes to show when he's not doing well, this team really struggles. Let me take you to Mother's Day, which was May 8th, of course. That was a walk-off win. The Angels proved that they loved moms the most that day when they took on the Nationals. Let me tell you what happened in this game. Jared Walsh hits a single. Max Stassi, you guessed it, he walks. Then, get this, Brandon Marsh delivers a sacrifice bunt. He gets those runners over to second and third. And then Jack Mayfield, of all people, came in to pinch hit for Tyler Wade and got a single. And that scored both Stassi and Walsh. How about that? We had runners on base, and Brandon Marsh puts down the bunt, gets those runners over, and Mayfield comes up with a single that scores two. That got the guys back in the game. 5 through 8 in the order got the guys back in this game. They were trailing. Then the Angels win because the top of the order delivers the way that they're supposed to. Let's go to the bottom of the order. When Luis Rengifo came in to pinch hit for Andrew Velazquez, he walked. Right after that, Taylor Ward singled, and then Shohei doubled, which scored both Rengifo and Ward. That tied the game. And then, as we all know, Anthony Rendon singled. Shohei scores from second for the walk-off. It was an amazing win, and it just goes to show, look at what the Angels were doing back then. Look who was contributing to the runs back then. Yeah, Jared Walsh started off with a single. Max Stassi walked. And I can't get over the fact that Brandon Marsh put down that sac bunt. It seems so fundamental. It seems so simple, and I really wish that the Angels would get back to that kind of play. Let's go to Texas at home. And this was the last game the Angels won before the 14-game losing streak. Oh, to be back in late May before this losing streak. Let me tell you what happened here. The Angels scored 4 runs in the fourth in that game. Let me tell you how it happened. Jared Walsh, he doubled. Matt Duffy singled. We had a ground out from Luis Rengifo, but then Brandon Marsh singled. Max Stassi doubled. Tyler Wade singled. Andrew Velazquez had a productive out because he hit a sacrifice fly. Now, you know what that tells me right there? No mention of Shohei Ohtani. Anthony Rendon wasn't in the lineup. He was hurt at this point. No mention of Mike Trout in that sequence. It was all guys in the bottom half of the order contributing in positive ways. Jared Walsh, Matt Duffy, Brandon Marsh, Max Stassi, Tyler Wade, Andrew Velazquez. Even Luis Rengifo's ground out was productive because it moved the runners over and it allowed Brandon Marsh to hit a single to drive in Walsh and Duffy, right? So it just goes to show that when the bottom of this order is not contributing, and when you have guys like Brandon Marsh struggling, when you have Joe Adell down in AAA, who, when he makes contact, is being very productive. I know a lot of people will point to his batting average. You know what? Quit being an old head. Batting average, it's an old stat. Let's look at what productive stats Joe Adell does have. His slugging percentage is way up there, and his on-base percentage has improved. And when he makes contact, he is a productive hitter. And so it really boggles my mind. Even Andrew Velazquez, a sacrifice fly, a positive contribution, even though it was an out. And that was the last game we won before the losing streak. And I look at the 3 examples that I just gave you, and I realized this is what happens when you have a top 4 that have to do everything. Taylor Ward, Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, and sometimes Jared Walsh. Look, after looking at this, I'm really missing Anthony Rendon. And I know that he hasn't been the Rendon that we wanted him to be, the 2019 Washington Nationals Rendon, but he was a positive contribution. I know he wasn't always a positive contribution, but I'm looking at the early success the Angels had, and he was often there. He was often a part of that. And so it's really a shame that, yes, we are missing some of our hitters. And on the other hand, a lot of the guys 5 through 9 are really struggling. Even Jared Walsh is struggling. We need these guys to turn it around. The coaching staff has to help these guys out. And lastly, we got to bring up Joe Adell. We can't go without him anymore. Coming up on Locked On Angels, we're going to get you ready for the 3-game series against the Astros. But first, Locked On Angels is brought to you by Built Bar. Our friends at Built have given us the Coconut Brownie Chunk Puff. Say that 3 times fast, and maybe you'll have a box appear on your doorstep. It's a deliciously chewy marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. And the best part, they taste good and they're good for you. It's a low-calorie, low-sugar, high-protein puff. The Coconut Brownie Chunk Puffs are only here for a limited time, so I suggest you get to Built.com and order your box as soon as possible. All you have to do is go to Built.com. All the Built Bars are made with collagen protein, which is good for your body. It absorbs it more efficiently, and it provides a ton of health benefits. So eat something that tastes good and is good for you. So try the delicious coconut rich sweet brownie creamy marshmallow puff, the Coconut Brownie Chunk Puffs. You're not going to regret it. Right now you can go to Built.com to order your box of the Coconut Brownie Chunk Built Puffs right now. And when you do, be sure to use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order at Built.com today. Well, the last time the Astros played the Angels, we got embarrassed. It was awful. We were in Houston. It was a weekend series. It wasn't great. We lost 1-8, 1-9, and then we lost 2-4 because of a walk-off. Ryan Tepera gave up the game-winning home run. And then, of course, we had that moment where Taylor Ward was caught off the bag at first base because he thought for some reason Jose Altuve was tossing the ball to him as a joke. And then our first base coach just said, get back, get back, get back. It wasn't, you could tell there was like no sense of urgency. It was like, if I was that guy, I'd be like, get back on first. And I don't know what happened there. But the Astros are coming to town, and it starts today. And we have Noah Syndergaard versus Luis Garcia. Luis Garcia is 7-5 with a 3.81 ERA. Now, the last time Thor faced the Astros at home was that game I talked about earlier, where it was him versus Verlander, and it was our first win of the season. Thor brought the thunder. The Astros brought the trash cans, but the thunder outdid the trash cans that night. Now, I pulled up an interesting stat on Luis Garcia. Opponents in a 0-0 count have a 341 batting average against him. So on the first pitch of an at-bat, opposing hitters are hitting 341. So that tells me that the Angels need to swing away on that first pitch, because as the at-bat goes on, oh man, Luis Garcia just gets better and better. So just call me Mark Gubiza, because I'm sure he'll say that on the broadcast, that the Angels have to go after that first pitch, and they got to do it quickly, because that's going to be the advantage against Luis Garcia. Then we have Shohei Ohtani versus Christian Javier. The last time we faced Christian Javier was last weekend. He had 7 innings pitched and gave up 1 home run. Now, I would say, hey, Shohei's on the mound. We can get another win. But honestly, it all depends on if the Angels offense decides to show up or not. And they have really struggled in the past against Christian Javier. So what's a key to winning against Christian Javier? Well, get this. If the Angels get runners on base and in scoring position, so basically having traffic on the base paths while Christian Javier is pitching, that is where his batting average against is highest, and hitters have had the most success against him. They have, get this, 333 batting average with 2 outs and runners in scoring position. And then with guys on base, just in general, and 2 outs, he has a 318 batting average against. So something about the 2 outs and the 2 out hits for Christian Javier are difficult for him. Maybe he feels like he should already be out of the inning, and he's already focused on getting back in the dugout. So all of that to say, if the Angels have traffic on the base paths against Christian Javier, they should see some success at the plate. In fact, they want to get guys on base because when Christian Javier has empty bases, the batting average against him, 161. Man, these Astros have so much pitching right now. It's insane. Then finally, the last game of the series, we don't have a starter quite yet. Maybe we'll find out in the next day or two what the Angels are planning to do there. But they are going to go up against Framber Valdez. Oh boy, 8-4 with a 2.64 ERA. Now he is 1-1 in 3 games against us. He got a no decision against us last time in Houston last weekend. And of course, that was the walk-off game. So the Angels have taken one this season. They've lost to him this season. And then he got a no decision, but we did later go on to lose that game. Look, the Astros are good. They're still good. And they're the team that's dominating the AL West. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I know that we joke about trash cans and things like that, but you know what? The only one who's really there these days is Altuve and Bregman, and you know what? That's in the past. I'm over it. It's kind of fun to still make fun of them because the Astros fan base is probably the easiest to trigger. Honestly, they get really defensive about it. But listen, you guys are good. You have a good team, and most of those guys are gone from this team now. And you've got guys like Yordan Alvarez and Jose Siri, and of course the pitching staff that I just discussed. So calm down, Astros fans. You're a good team. You don't need to overcompensate. It's okay. You can be prideful about how good your team is, but you don't need to get all defensive. We're just joking around. Look, the Angels need something to laugh about these days because right now all we can do is laugh at our team and how bad they're doing. So give us a little reprieve here, huh? Coming up next on Locked On Angels, we've got a voicemail message from a listener with a very important question, and I've got an answer that you're going to want to hear. But first, Locked On Angels is brought to you by Rock Auto. With so many different makes and models of cars today, it can be nearly impossible to expect your local auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. And then sometimes you don't even know what kind of vehicle you have in particular. Like, is your Honda Odyssey an LX or an EX? If you don't know, then they're not going to know either at your local auto parts store. So here's what you got to do. You got to go to rockauto.com because they will give you access to all the parts your car will ever need, from brake parts to tail lamps to motor oil, even new carpet. RockAuto.com has it all. And here's the good news. Rock Auto is a family-owned business serving all do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. And if that's you, then you really want to go to rockauto.com. Because they're family-owned, they understand budgets, which is why their prices are reliably low for every single customer. So if you're working on your car, go to rockauto.com and see all the parts available for it, or even your truck. And when you do, be sure to write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so that way they know that Mike and I from Locked On Angels sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Go to rockauto.com today. And for our last segment of the day, I got a great voicemail that I wanted to share with you guys. And then this particular listener had a question. So I'm going to play that right now. You guys, here we go.
What's up, guys? This is Steve from Kansas, just calling. John, yeah, so I told my wife today, Sunday afternoon, I said that the Angels just got swept by the Baltimore Orioles, just trying to save time. I said it just the way you said it, and she looked at me like I was a total weirdo, so thanks for that. But anyway, just wanted to know what hope, if any, you guys have for this season. This was a kind of a tough pill to swallow, the losses piling up, and I think so far the thing that's got me most excited about this season, other than Shohei, is the City Connect uniforms. Just got my City Connect jersey and my City Connect hat, and yeah, other than that, it's looking kind of grim. So do you have any reason for hope for this season, or are we looking for 2023? Anyway, all right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Steve from Kansas, thank you for putting a smile on my face during this time where it's so difficult to watch the Angels right now. I'm so glad that my bit got over with you. The Baltimore Orioles, just trying to save time. Thank you for putting that out into the world and putting that into action. I'm sorry your wife looked at you like you were crazy. My wife does that all the time, so it's fine. But listen, congrats on getting your City Connect uniform. I love that. And I really appreciate the question you had as well, Steve, from Kansas. How do we have hope for the rest of the season, or do we just look to 2023? I sat back and I thought about it, and here's my answer. The Mariners were 10 games under 500 after the brawl that took place at Angel Stadium. And since then, they've made it to the wild card race. They're in it, guys. They have gone on a tear since the brawl. It inspired them. Not sure it inspired us very much. The other thing is, I mentioned the Astros fans. The Mariners fans gotta chill too. You got a good team. You got Ty France. He got snubbed. I voted for Ty France, at least in one of my ballots. The other times it was Jared Walsh, but Ty France is a good player. As an Angels fan, I like Ty France. So you guys have a good team. Calm down and get over the brawl. It's in the past. You guys are winning. You're up there now. So calm down. Everybody just calm down. So that's one thing that sticks out to me, Steve, is the Mariners were 10 games under 500. We're currently 11 under 500, but now they're right back in the wild card race. And then our last opponent, the Baltimore Orioles, just trying to save time, they went on a run at our expense, and now they're in the race too. In fact, they might just get over 500 again and be right there in the mix. You might have all 5 AL East teams competing for a wild card spot. It's crazy. They went on a run. They won their last 8 games. And look, I know deep down that this is a good Angels team, and they are in a funk. It's from the clubhouse to the coaching and to the management. They got to get it figured out, because we know that there's talent on this team. They have Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani. Jared Walsh is a very good player. And right now he's slumping. Brandon Marsh is slumping. We need Joe Adell on this team to bring some offense. The offense has been the problem. Patrick Sandoval couldn't get any run support, and he held the Orioles to a 1-0 game, and the Angels couldn't do anything. And so I just think the Angels need to make improvements in the offensive category, and it starts with bringing up your heavy hitters. The other thing I'll point to, Steve, is the 2019 Nationals. Now, I know that probably a lot of people make this excuse, I guess, or look to the Nationals when they are down in the dumps like the Angels are. But the Nationals were 12 games under 500 on May 23rd, 2019. And they got a wild card spot. They got to the playoffs. They beat the Dodgers. And they won the World Series against the Astros. And that team had Anthony Rendon. That team had Kurt Suzuki. That's got to be something, right? But look, we've got a shorter window than that. I understand. We're 11 games under 500, and we don't have as much time as the Nationals did when they came back from May 23rd, when they were 12 games under 500. But look, let me tell you something that gives me hope. The rest of the way, we have a really light schedule. Let me tell you the toughest teams. We've got 9 games against Houston starting today with the 3-game set. We play them 6 more times after this series. We've got 2 against the Dodgers. That's going to be really tough. They're coming to Angel Stadium. After the All-Star break, we have 3 games against the Braves. And then later on, we have 3 games against the Yankees. So Houston, Los Angeles, Atlanta, and New York, the Yankees, are the toughest teams we have to play for the rest of the season. Let's see, that's 9, 11, 14. That's 17 games. The 17 hardest games are ahead of us. And the rest of the schedule, it's a lot against the AL West. It's a lot against Oakland. It's a lot against Texas. There's some Kansas City games in there. And I have hope that the Angels can put it together and beat the teams that they should beat. I hope that the All-Star break is a reset for them, even though they won't be at 500 by the time it rolls around. I do think that if they get some time off, they can come out hot and get back to where they were. Because again, there's only 17 really tough games for the rest of the season. The rest are series that we could easily win. And if you go on a run, you're right back there in the wild card race. And here's my last answer. The Angels are clearly starting to feel the heat because Perry Manassian had an interview with Jeff Fletcher, which I shared yesterday. He's got one set up with Sam Blum from The Athletic, and I'm looking forward to that article. Probably will come out today. And Perry Manassian is personally taking responsibility for the shortcomings of this team. And what does that tell me? It tells me that there's an urgency right now. There's an urgency to get things right, to make changes, make moves that are necessary. Again, I'm going to shout it from the rooftops. Joe Adell needs to be with his team. The Angels need to make a trade, I think, for a strong middle infielder. We have David Fletcher coming back. I understand that. But man, I really think that the Angels can no longer sit on their hands. They've got to make some changes. And Perry Manassian speaking out to the media finally shows me that there is some urgency with this team. So I'm hopeful. That's how you can have hope for the rest of the season. And if they bomb, you can come back here and get mad at me. I promise. I want to thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, go and check out the Locked On MLB Prospects show with host Lindsey Crosby. He's a good friend of ours. He actually joined us a few weeks ago to talk about the Angel system, and that was a lot of fun. And you can check that video out on our channel or find that previous episode on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. He's a prospect encyclopedia, and with the draft coming up, the trade deadline, you're going to want to tune into his show because he's got all the scoops on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow us at Locked On Angels and connect with Mike and I on Twitter and Instagram at Super Halo Bros. And tonight's game between the Astros and the Angels, they're at home at the Big A, starts at 6:38 p.m. So be sure you tune in for that one. Tomorrow on Locked On Angels, we're going to continue our look at where this season went wrong for the Halos. And we're going to continue with the hitting. And we're going to talk about, in particular, what happens to the rest of the team when Mike Trout goes into a slump. It was the worst slump of his career, and we're going to talk about it. Until then, my name is John, and my brother Mike is on vacation, and we're the Super Halo Bros. We really appreciate you joining us for Locked On Angels, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow for another episode.